Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So great to have you all here today for our last culture chat of 2024. I can't believe how fast this year has gone by. It's been an incredible year. If this is your first time joining us for a culture chat, welcome. These sessions are really about holistic professional development, and so we look from a wide range of topics. So not just your traditional career topics, like resume building and that kind of thing, but we also look at things like mental health and physical health, financial well-being, because we know that all of these things impact how we show up in our careers and in our lives. So we really want to focus on how do we help us grow as individuals so we can step out and be stronger, more resilient members of society and members of our communities. So I want to thank you all for coming out today. We have a very special chat today. What we're going to be doing is doing a recap of the year. So if you missed any of the previous sessions, don't worry, we're going to be going over everything we've talked about, kind of pulling in some of the highlights, and then Julia and I will be having a little bit of a discussion around some of these topics. So, as we go through each of the topics, feel free to utilize the chat, the Q&A function down below. If you want to contribute to the conversation, you want to ask a question about it. So we're going to be going through each one and drawing on some of the highlights and things that we want to be talking about. So I want to introduce you all to my co-host today. We have Julia, who is going to be sitting down, and we're going to be talking about some of the key takeaways and learnings from this year. Julia, anything you want to say?
Hello everybody. My name is Julia, as Nathan mentioned. I'm really looking forward to chatting about what we've learned throughout the culture chats of the year. We've talked to a lot of really incredible people who have offered some really awesome insights into how to navigate being in a workspace and being a racialized person. And just being able to reflect on all of that is going to be a very cool opportunity. So thank you for joining us.
All right. Excellent. So why don't we just hop right into it? So take us back to last January. What were we talking about?
So last January, we had two very special guests. We had Kamakshi Marwa and Sibeli Sedan, who were mental health therapists at Fruits from the Roots. And they had a culture chat with us where they discussed the importance of awareness and understanding your connection between your technology and your mental health. So figuring out if you are overusing your digital technology or if you are maybe utilizing it as a coping strategy rather than recognizing that there are places within your life where it would probably help to be off of your screen from time to time. So, just recapping on that, one of my biggest takeaways from that is being more conscientious of how I use my technology,
Mhm.
recognizing if I'm using it for the benefit of my brain or if I am using it as a deficit against my brain, and figuring out what is my purpose in terms of using my technology. So, my question for you, Nathan, is your biggest takeaway from this session, but also if you've made any shifts in your digital use to be more conscientious of the way that you intake information and also use your technology and social media and the like.
Yeah, I think the concept of intentionality really came out in these sessions. And like you just said, like, why am I engaging in this? What is this doing to me and for me? And so I think just really pausing to think, why am I going on to this device, right? And just being more conscientious and intentional about our actions and the choices that we're making can have such a big difference. I think more people are becoming educated around algorithms and how these things work, or even like the business model of social media and how they are paid more, they get more money the more engaged we are. And we know that what engages us the most is enraging content, is stuff that incites certain feelings in us. And as a result, a lot of content creators will use intentionally provocative language, make declarations that'll kind of get us to feel something that makes us want to comment, to make us want to share it. And so we can, it's so easy for us to get caught up in those things. I was just looking at like a post, um doesn't matter about what, but in the comment section, like you see everybody was kind of agreeing with this very um extreme position that the post was making. And if you just see that, it deceives you into thinking everybody thinks this way, right? Everybody believes that, when in reality, it's like, well, no, these comments, may even if it's hundreds of people, that's such a small fraction of the total population who could actually be thinking these things. But when you are just so focused and you're in a discussion forum, you're in the comment section, it's so easy to get caught up thinking that everybody thinks this way. And so something that I've really been implementing is get outside, like literally and metaphorically, like get out of these places, put yourself in spaces where you hear difference of opinions and different perspectives, right? Because so often you think that what you're seeing is a representation of the world around you and that this is an accurate representation. But another, big term that I've been hearing a lot increasingly over the years is echo chambers, right? And your social media feed being this echo chamber that just mirrors back your thoughts, right? And it's like, oh, these are my thoughts, my positions, my ideologies, and I just keep hearing them back with the posts that are being served up to me. And so we want to break through that and listen to difference of opinions, just getting outside, engaging with people. On social media, it will always look like the world is falling apart. It'll look like everybody is against everybody. There's nothing but bad in the world. But when you just go for a walk around your neighborhood, talk to people, engage with folks, find other ways of connecting with people offline, has been such an enriching thing for me, and just a reminder to break through some of that stark feeling that all is doom and gloom when you read those comment sections. That no, the world is still, there's still lots of good going on in the world. And just another intentional habit that I put into place, just always used to working and having my devices near me. And anytime I want a break, or like I'm blocked in something and I just want a quick break, I would tend to pick up my phone and, oh, what's going on? Now I make sure next to me, I always keep a guitar next to me, so that when I have one of those moments of I just need a little bit of a break, I pick that up and I just doodle. I play something, and that's way it's building a skill. It's something that fills me up. That at the end of that 5 minutes, now I've activated my creative brain. I've activated muscles, like all of these different things. So I'm left feeling more energized and more creative. So now I'm able to hop back into what I'm doing. So those are some of the things that I've implemented to help curb the impact of digital usage.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking about get outside is that phrase that people keep using these days, which is like touch grass. Please just
Mm,
touch grass. And more than just touching grass, like go communicate with other people and be like, how do you feel about this? And I think having those conversations can help to make things more uh, like simple for yourself in terms of looking at the world with a more positive view, but also can help you towards having conversations that maybe end up being more fruitful for you.
yeah.
Which also connects to our next culture chat, which came up in February. Um, where we had conversations about having challenging conversations.
Mm.
So we were joined by Roheen Budram, who is an incredible educator and a leader in higher education and academia. And she discussed her strategies for having challenging conversations. So a lot of the ways that we engage in social media also shows that the way that we engage in life, because of the information that we've collected from what we see on our phones, on our screens, on our laptops, whatever, the places that we're getting information is going to change the way that we engage with the world. And
Yeah.
so that means that we're going to have difficult conversations because of our different viewpoints and our different perspectives of how we intake information about the world. So in her culture chat, she talked about some ways that you're able to reframe certain things that people say to you in order to make sure that you are having a more balanced approach in terms of how you approach challenging conversations. So, my question to you is, what did you need to do in order to reframe and be more attentive to have more effective, difficult conversations?
Yeah, I think, this has been a struggle my whole life. Being someone who tried to avoid difficult conversations, but have really made the intention over the years to get better at addressing those and leaning in. So I really, really appreciated that session. If you haven't checked it out, it's still on our website that you're able to go back and to watch all of these previous culture chats. But, you know, kind of tying in, like you said, to the earlier one is getting out there and engaging in more conversation. Something that I've seen, especially since COVID, working from home, a lot of people have lost the ability just to engage with others, let alone having hard conversations, but just sticky conversations or uncomfortable, like not even hard ones, but just awkward conversations. And so I think one of those key things is really just practicing. So being in community, being in spaces where I'm around different types of folks, I'm around people with different views and experiences and perspectives, and having those conversations, just talking with people. So before I have to have a hard conversation, let's just have a conversation, right? And getting back into that skill set that I can just talk to a stranger on the bus and we can engage in a conversation like with always head down on our phones, working remotely, texting. A lot of people have lost those core skills, and so I think starting there with just talk more. Talk to the person when you're in lineup. Talk to the person in front of you, behind you, when you're on the bus, when you're waiting for something, and just practice engaging with strangers, practice engaging with people who think differently from you, from different generations, different walks of life, and just get in those habits of having those conversations. And then you can start to get a little bit stickier in the conversation where it's like, okay, let's talk about this challenging concept, right? And you slowly up the stakes a little bit. So at first, you're not engaging in a conversation that is high stakes, where like maybe I'm talking to my manager about X, Y, and Z. It's like, all right, that's a very high stakes conversation, but I'm talking to my friend, I'm talking to my neighbor. We could be talking about whatever the case may be, something that just upping it a little bit. And so I start practicing little by little on who I'm speaking to, someone that before I might not have been comfortable speaking with. And I'm increasing the conversation from just talking about the weather to talking about something that might be a little bit more opinionated and engaging in those conversations. And one of the core skills I think that we all need to learn is effective listening, right? And it's like when I can go into a conversation and I want to learn and my focus is I want to understand where they are coming from as opposed to being understood, that provides such a stronger foundation for me to be able to communicate what I need because now I understand how did you get to where you're at? Why do you think the way that you think? Help me to understand that because people are a lot more reasonable and logical than we often give them credit for. It's like, oh, people who believe in this, they're like that, right? And we have these like such broad strokes. But if I take the time to really understand where you're coming from, what went into your beliefs that you had, it helps me to get a better understanding, and it makes the conversation much less adversarial, right? Because now we're not debating, but I'm here genuinely trying to learn and understand you. And when a person feels that they are being listened to, when they feel understood, when they feel valued, is more likely that they are going to reciprocate, right? And then we're not dealing with ego and the mid lower parts of the brain, but we're able to tap into the higher, the prefrontal cortex and reason with each other. But we can't reason together if we're both on the defense and we both feel like we have to defend and protect ourselves. And so helping people to lower their walls by being that safe space and asking genuine questions, listening so that they feel understood, that helps them to lower their walls and it opens up a place to have a much more effective conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing that I take with me into having challenging conversations with people is saying, coming into it with curiosity rather than judgment, and trying to determine why are you the way that you are, in the same way that you have mentioned, of having those challenging conversations and trying to determine more about, I'm curious about you rather than I'm going to place immediate judgment on you. But
Yeah.
another really important point that you mentioned is practicing having challenging conversations, because as we continue to practice, then we can have the harder ones
Yep.
furthermore into, especially in career spaces and in workspaces. It feels like there are a lot of unspoken rules about how to engage within those spaces. Our next culture chat, which happened in March, was with Stefan Keys, and he talked about how his experience of experiencing prejudice within white spaces, like within workspaces where it was a predominantly white culture, and experiencing that prejudice was extremely difficult, especially because he was working for CTV News in Ottawa. Working within the news is already a challenge within itself, but working in Ottawa, which is a very white space, and having to deal with the struggles of dealing with prejudice in those spaces. So I'm wondering if you have ever experienced workplace prejudice in a way that shifted your career perspective, and if you had this perspective of, did it shift for the better because now you are able to engage in those spaces with more authenticity, but also with the drive and the ability to engage in potentially challenging conversations.
Yeah, well, I mean, this whole company was founded off of my workplace prejudice that I've experienced, and the whole my whole journey through a lot of those things and figuring it out. And so it ended up serving all of my experiences have led me to where we are now. Um, you know, I for those who haven't heard, kind of the origin story of Culture Check, um, I had won an award and I posted about it on LinkedIn and somebody left the comment that no one respects criminals. You and your bros need to learn how to start respecting the law and society. And this had happened in the summer of 2020 during the height of, the BLM protests. And so that's what they were referring to, right? Because a lot of the protests were being deemed as, um, you know, crime and looting and all of those different types of things. And so it ended up getting a lot of attention, right? Like people started commenting, it kind of went a little viral. And a lot of people started messaging me, like, I can't believe somebody would talk to you like that, Nathan. I can't believe someone would speak like that in a professional environment. And I would tell them, it's like, people have been speaking to me this my whole career. Even as a student, people were speaking to me like this, and they would be shocked. And so I ended up doing this survey. I had 420 racialized professionals fill out this survey talking about their experiences with racism in the workplace, and 80% of them said they had the expectation of experiencing racism at work. And this really highlighted that issue, right? Because it's like, all right, these were my experiences. Every job that I was in, like I felt I had those expectations. I had the comments, I had the looks, I had the treatment, all of those different types of things, and I've had to figure out how do I navigate through all of that. And so I had the fortune that while I was experiencing that, I was figuring out how do I navigate and gain success still in that environment. And and so with the developing of culture check, it was really how do we support the community, people who are experiencing these things day in and day out, but then what are the things that leaders need to learn, that organizations need to put into place in order to create more inclusive environments? And so for me, I was able to take all of those experiences and turn it into this, right? And turn it into something that is of benefit. Right? You know, the saying, you know, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds, right? And so it's like taking and it took years, right? Because this is a lifetime of my experiences, a lifetime of pain and struggling and trying to find my way through there. But there was that relentlessness, there was that intentionality that where when opportunity and preparation, you know, met is what allowed culture check to come. And it was the culmination of all of who I am, all of what I've gone through, all of my experiences now being used to the benefit of others. And you might have heard me say, don't let your trauma go to waste is another one of my favorite sayings. And making sure it's like, okay, I've gone through these things. How can I make sure that I'm making the most out of this? Because I've already experienced the pain. So how do I turn that pain into bad pain into that good pain, and being open, sharing, here's what I've learned, here's what I've gone through, right? In order to be of benefit to others. And so, that's often what drives me is the pain is going to happen regardless, right? We're going to experience trauma, we're going to feel hurt. How do I leverage that for the good? Don't just let it tear me down, don't let it break me down and limit what I do, which, to be honest, like that happened plenty of times. There's lots of periods in my life where I diminished my light, where I tried to cover it up because of the fear or because I'm buying into what I'm being told. And it took a long time, and that relentlessness, that hope that it's like, okay, if I just keep pushing, I keep trying, that allowed me to get to that place. And it's something still struggle with. I don't know if I always let my light shine as brightly as I could, but it's something that I continue to work on, and that intentionality of using my pain, using my experiences to be of service to others.
Yeah, of course. And I think that that is a really difficult struggle that a lot of people have is get becoming that person within that shift of experiencing something painful and turning it into something that you're proud of. And I think that that's a really incredible journey. The thing is that a lot of people are still working on that journey. They're still trying to figure it out. So, something that I think connects us to our next chat after that is our chat with Dr. Kira Mantang, who talked about the the ability to take ownership of your own health, especially when we're talking about trauma that can cover all manner of sins in terms of your health. It can challenge your mental health, your physical health, the way that you operate within the world. If you now have a disability, or if you've had a disability, it changes the way that you're able to engage with the space around you. And he discussed a lot of key strategies of how to maintain your health, especially as a racialized person. So I am wondering, for your sake, in terms of making that transition from having that trauma and turning that bad pain into good pain, was there anything within Dr. Kira Mentang's culture chat that helped you to take these key strategies in ways that would benefit your health.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I really appreciated about that conversation was him talking openly about how little doctors are trained in nutrition. And it's like oftentimes like you think of health practitioner and nutrition being such a vital part of health, though obviously that's related, right? And he was saying like, I think they had one class or something like that in or it's like 1% or one class, it was one something, whatever the unit of measurement was of nutrition. And so everything that he's learned about nutrition he learned outside of school. That was just him doing that studying on their own. And this has always been something that frustrated me a lot because I would hear people say, like, oh, I have low iron. My doctor said I just need to eat more steaks. And it was like that was their advice that they gave because and it seems like because it came from a doctor, like, okay, this is sound advice. And it was like this wasn't the best advice. You know, uh this wasn't well thought out. It was just what they knew, right? It wasn't based on because their extensive knowledge around nutrition and holistic health. And so just him being open about that, I think was so important. And he really emphasized the importance of taking ownership of our health, right? That it's not about the doctor who prescribes and tells us everything that we need to do. They have limited knowledge and understanding of these things. And so it's really on us to make sure that we are well versed in what we're going through, that we're taking the time to understand nutrition and micro and macronutrients and taking care of ourselves so that we can more effectively advocate when we go to the doctors, right? When we're leaning into those things. And so I thought that that was such an important message for people to hear who just tend to outsource. And it's like whatever the doctor says I will do. But they don't know a lot in that realm either. And so we have to make sure that we are taking and educating ourselves around there. And and one of the big things that he, he really emphasized was just a holistic approach. There's no shortcuts. We need good sleep. We need the water. We need the nutrients. We need the movement. We need the sunlight. All of those things managing our mental health and our stress loads. All of these things are important. I cannot just isolate one and just focus on that, but our physical health is so intertwined with our mental health, with our sleep, our drinking, our eating, all of these things. If we're moving, are we sweating enough? Are we getting enough sunlight and fresh air? All of these things are so important. And as more of us have desk jobs, as more of us are inside or maybe even like working from home and limited amount of fresh air, outdoor movement, it's so vital that we become intentional with our physical health, making sure that we are moving enough, making sure that we're consuming the right things, and that we're finding a balance in all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to throw it out to our attendees that if anyone has any more questions about how they can cultivate better physical health, how they can use all of these strategies that we've talked about up until this point in both their workspace but also within their personal life, then please let us know in the Q&A section and we will be happy to answer your questions nearing the end of the chat and also throughout if we're able to do so. I will also say that in regard to figuring out our own physical health, you're right. We have to be our own advocates for that because if we continue to outsource it, nobody knows your body as well as you do. And also, on top of that, like you said, we can't just separate them into separate silos. The way that I always like to think about it, as a person who does yoga a lot, one of the main principles of yoga is treating the body like one moving part. And so even when you're moving through transitions within the yoga practice, you are focusing on the fact that although your arm is moving, it means things are going to change within the rest of your body too. And
Mm,
using that same mantra throughout the way that you treat your physical health, both in the sense of how you treat it even outside of the practice, I think is a
mm,
very helpful tool to use. Connecting with our health, sometimes that means that within workspaces, we need to make shifts in the way that we decide to engage with our workspace. And for that reason, when we work with certain people within our workspaces, it means sometimes we need to have conversations with HR. And so, transitioning into our next culture chat with our speaker at this point was McKinney Board, and she is a seasoned HR leader with a lot of experience on the friction between people and HR and leadership. And during her culture chat, she talked about how to work with HR and have it work for you as well, and what kind of strategies you can use in order to have HR actually be a benefit to you. And so, because those navigations can be difficult, I wanted to check in with you, Nathan, about your biggest takeaways from what McKinney suggested in terms of strategies of how to navigate that and how we can mitigate what we can versus what we cannot control within those spaces.
yeah, sounds good. First of all, your transition game is crazy. Going from from health to HR so seamlessly. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Um, but yes, as Julia said, if you have questions or comments about anything that we're talking about, please feel free to put it in the chat, and be a part of the conversation. But the idea of what can we control and what versus what we can't control when it comes to HR. Um, it's important to understand like what is within our control when we're in the workplace. So things like understanding, familiarizing yourself with the organization and the policies, the procedures, how are things carrying out, asking questions for clarification and guidelines, clear communication, being honest, proactive, when raising concerns, asking for support around documenting important interactions to ensure clarity and accountability, seeking support. So, reaching out to HR for guidance on available resources and support, and programs. And I think what's most important that a lot of people might not take advantage of is building relationships. So, fostering positive relationships with everybody, right? Like your managers, HR, and don't treat HR just like it's transactional, right? Like, hey, it says this, you have to do that. Right? Because once you enter into that adversarial relationship where it's like, well, this document says this, and I come at you all aggressive like that, like it changes the dynamics. So before things happen, you want to foster good relationships, like friendly relationships, because when people like you, they do more for you, right? They support you. They're trying to help you, like all of that. So it's like you can't value the importance of building good relationships with people. And so like if I have a great relationship with HR just on a casual basis, when I need help, when I'm looking for support, when I have a question, I have an ally here. I have somebody who knows me, who understands what I'm going through, and most likely they are going to give me a little bit of an extra effort. They might, you know what I mean? They're going to take some time to explain things to me, or they might advocate on my behalf, or they'd be like, "Oh, Nathan's a really good guy. Like, hey, you should think of him for there." Like, you want to build those relationships as much as possible. So I think taking a look at those things that are well within your control. So now when I'm engaging you when there's an issue, I have a foundation to work off of. We've established some of these conversations. I'm not waiting for an issue for the first time I talk to you. right? It's like I'm establishing that. I'm establishing relationships. Now, HR is still there serving the company. So it's not like they are your therapist or anything like that. Some might kind of operate in that type of realm where they want to hear and they're a good sounding board, but oftentimes that's not the case. But the more I understand their role and I have that relationship with, I get a better understanding of how things work. Because HR works differently in every organization. It sits in a different place in the organization in every company. They have different levels of authority, different levels of influence. So you really want to take the time to understand how does HR work in that organization, build those relationships so that I can know how to maneuver. I can manage through that. So when situations come up where there's a breakdown of a larger issue, or there's different external factors, or an unfair situation, now I have a foundation to work off of, right? And so I think the ultimate thing that we can control when it comes to HR is kind of just like our health, right? Educate yourself on what it is you need, what you're looking for, build those relationships so you can have conversations. And I think engaging in regular conversation is another important thing where I'm continuing, and that's part of relationship building, is talking to them, letting them know what's going on. What are you thinking about? What are some challenges? What are your opinions on this? Right? And I'm building that relationship. I'm showing interest. I'm investing in that. And now, by the time an issue comes up, I have a rapport with them. They know where I'm at. They know where my strengths are. They know where my weaknesses. They know what's been going on in my life because we have that rapport, right? And now that will set the tone for all of the rest of those engagements. So take the time to really invest um, and engage with HR, engage with your managers. That is something that I always give advice on. That was something that I did not do. Um, at all, right? Like I avoided managers, I avoided all people in authoritative positions for a long time because growing up, authority meant bad for me, right? And it was like I'm gonna be punished, or I'm gonna be called out, or something bad is going to happen when I'm engaging with this person. And so I did things on the low. Like I was quiet about my movements. I just did the work thinking that that was going to come through, but that's not the case, right? Like so we need to have those good relationships, see what's working, what's not working well. So that's one, I think that's the biggest advice I have for people in career. Build real, genuine connection with managers, with HR, with other people within the organization, because that is going to pay dividends down the road.
Absolutely. And I think just the importance of building relationships within the workspace in general is also really significant on how you continue to grow as an employee and within your own career. And also can change the way that you engage with the space around you. It can open up new opportunities. It can give you the opportunity to understand the workplace culture with more depth and figure out if this is a space for you or if shifts need to happen, or if even there were things that you didn't know about that now you know that can
Mhm.
help you to make it a more fruitful experience. Um, Another great transition coming your way because we're talking about building connections. And really big part of that is mentorship. And a really important part of mentorship is also connecting with your managers, connecting with the people who are in higher up positions, who have more of an overview of what is going on within a company culture. So, our culture chat that happened next after that was with Shalini Phillips, and she is a fractional chief people officer who had a lot of experience within leadership. And during her culture chat, she discussed the importance of mentorship and how it can positively affect not only your professional life within the workspace, but also in your personal life. And while we can recognize that there are immense benefits to mentorship, it can also create some challenges for us in the way that we decide to engage within mentorship. So I'm wondering what challenges you have found, both being a mentor, but also as a mentee, and how you've decided to navigate through those challenges in order to make them beneficial experiences for you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I've had as a mentor was finding myself in a place where I am investing more than the mentee, that I seem more committed, that I am putting in more work, that I am putting in that energy that I expect them to put in. And sometimes it's like, oh, we have a conversation and it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then I'll go off and get it done. And they don't, or they're dragging their feet. And that used to frustrate me to no end. It's like I shouldn't be working harder at your career and in your life or your situation more than you. So whatever I'm doing, if you're not matching it and you should be exceeding it, then I have to step back. And so I've really have learned to step back and it's like, okay, I will match your energy, right? Like I'm not going to go at it like how I go at my own situations. It's like if that's what you want, okay, that's how you want to move. Like I'll tell you it's like, okay, I think you're dragging your feet or you're not approaching this how you need to. Um and so that prevents a lot of people and it blows my mind because I try to be the mentor that I would have wanted, right? And it's like, man, if somebody would have put me on and given me the keys, have given me all of those different things, have willing to introduce me, so on and so forth, it would have, like, changed my life. Like, I tried so hard to find mentors, and I was looking in every corner, and I never really had I had people that I looked up to, and I learned I like learning from a distance, right? So I'm watching you, and so you're my mentor, you don't know about it, we don't have a relationship, but I'm watching your movements in that way, but like I wanted someone who I could look at. So I have created a lot of space to be able to do that for others and to be able to support people in that way. But I over the years I've realized that, I have to be able to tone that down because when I'm investing more and then I do all the work and then you're not there to pick it up or you're not doing anything with it, then all that work goes to waste, right? And you're not really serious. So I try to put in when people come to me, like I'll put in certain expectations, right? That like, okay, if you're not willing to do these things, then this isn't going to be a fruitful exercise. Then, if you just want to have a conversation, that's different. If you're looking for accountability, you're looking for me to invest in you, that's going to require you to invest in yourself at least as much as I'm going to be doing. So,
Absolutely. I think trying to figure out that balance between being a mentor and being a mentee and figuring out if the relationship is working the way that you would want it to. I think it works within all manners of relationships, like friendships or romantic relationships or familial relationships. If you're not seeing the same amount of energy being put in on both sides, then you're left feeling like, why am I putting in so much effort when I'm not receiving it at the same
mm,
time? And I think just being aware of having those conversations with each other is a really important factor that I think can take some time to figure out how to do in terms of also from a mentee's perspective of am I willing to put in the investment in myself? Am I willing to hold myself accountable? Am I at a place where I can hold myself accountable? And I think that that sometimes can take some effort and shifting in order to figure out where you're at in order to make sure that you can be a responsible and accountable mentee before seeking out a mentor. And in terms of trying to figure out if you're ready to invest in yourself, a really big part of that is personal branding. And so and so, moving into our next culture chat, which was with Jesse Jones. He is a media personality and was the host of season 1 of The Bachelor in Paradise Canada, and also a co-host of ET Canada. And he talks a lot about how his journey with personal branding helped him to shape his career in a way that he was really happy with, and also talking about how to take the things that make you feel the most passionate, make you feel the most like yourself, and how to turn those things into your personal brand. The way that he framed that is calling it a lit list. And so, after going through this chat, Nathan and I discussed a lot about what would be on our lit lists. So I know a few months back, if you feel like checking out our Instagram, please do. But Nathan posted his list of what would be on his lit list. And so checking in, yet another place of me holding you accountable. What has made you shift things within your life to cultivate what is on your lit list? And do you feel like you are still sticking to that list even up to this point of making it?
Yeah, I think I still uphold it. Creating a schedule, like having a rough schedule has been important where I'm able to structure in those different pieces. And where I've been disciplined is when something is kind of uh taking up too much space, of making sure it's not infringing on those other areas of my life. And so I have this time to do these activities. I'm going to do all that I can to get it done in that time period because I want to protect the space for that next activity, for those next things. And so, we were talking about this before we got started, of being in a weird place where there's so much to do. So I'm trying to keep a balance where I'm not just overworking to get everything done, but I'm working in a sustainable way. But sometimes doing that in a sustainable way, you feel like you're leaving things on the table, right? Like you feel like, oh, well, if I just spent some extra time, I can get this done, or I can get more done if I do that. But at what cost? Right? And that invisible cost often goes undetected for months, even years for people, right? Where you're slowly infringing on the other aspects of your life. The things that are on your lit list start deteriorating and you never do them because you've allowed everything else to balloon up and completely overshadow everything else. And so I've been very intentional about that. And so there is that discomfort because ah, I'm not as productive as I want to be, or it's like I should be getting more done, but I'm still getting things done, and I'm getting things done across different aspects of my life. So it's like, okay, I'm taking care of the household and myself and family and work and this and that. And so each one might feel like that growing to-do list in each one, but I'm keeping a balance across those different aspects of my life, and it's moving. A lot of times that discomfort is my own mental barriers or expectations of like, no, I got to keep doing more and more and more of that. Don't stop until the work is done. And it's like just trying to reprogram myself that it's like, no, I'm keeping a balance between I have this time to do this work. I do what I can do. When it's that time again, I will get back onto it, and really protecting the boundaries of each of those areas to make sure that those things on the lit list are being done. And so I feel like I have been very disciplined in making sure I'm doing all of those different things that I value, that I appreciate. But just to give y'all the real, like in doing that, it doesn't always feel good, right? Like I'm doing the things that make me feel good, but I'm feeling a little like, am I not doing certain things? Am I missing out on certain things? And so it's part of the journey, right? That even in doing the things that you love, you can still feel that tension inside of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that tension sometimes can help to create an intentional like response in yourself to be like, is this a place where I need to reevaluate? Is this something where this actually does make me feel good? Am I truly passionate about it, or do I have it on my plate because I feel obligated? And making those discernments can actually help you to make sure that what is on that list of what you want to keep intentional stays intentional, rather than feeling like things that you are doing simply because you feel like you have to do them.
Mhm.
Um, and in the process of making those transitions, sometimes that means that you have to make transitions within the way that your life looks, the way that your career looks. And so when we talked to Victor Paulo, he talked to us about the challenges of going through career transitions. He has had a very extensive and a very, I guess, a smattering career in terms of it looks kind of like a salad. There's a lot of different things going on within his career. He
Mhm.
has been a sports announcer and a weathercaster and has just worked in many different jobs within the media landscape. And he discussed moments where pivoting in your career can be more of an asset as opposed to a deficit. And I'm just wondering, because he also discussed that because of going through career transitions, sometimes that means that being a racialized person and having to go through career transitions can cause a lot of inner turmoil, a lot of inner struggles, and also, again, kind of like we talked about in previous chats, the challenge of being sometimes the only racialized person within a space that is predominantly white. And he talked a lot about resilience and cultivating resilience within workspaces, both in the terms of making transitions and also in terms of being a person who might be the only one in the room. I'm wondering why you think showing up as a racialized person with resilience is an important thing to have within the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of the earlier part of my career as, the only one. Um, and so, those experiences were definitely formative. I think representation is still such an important thing. Seeing people from your community in spaces is so powerful, for people looking in. Like I remember throughout my career, like always looking out for, who else is in the room, who's done it before, looking for mentors, like I said, people who've laid the groundwork, people to look up to who look like me. And most of the spaces that I was in, these people were not there. And so I didn't see myself. I didn't see my experiences. I didn't hear my voice in these places. And so I learned masking. I learned code switching, how to carry these different parts of me. And when I eventually found myself in leadership positions, I made that conscious effort to be for others what I wanted for myself. Right. And so now sometimes or often, I'll be on panels or I'll do a talk or something. And without fail, people will come up to me and tell me, how feel they seen, how they feel represented. And that's a form of empowerment, a form of motivation. It's part of how we redefine our narratives and open doors for those who are coming behind us. And so, I think me going through those paths has informed me, has empowered, which has given me again what I needed for culture check, where now it's like, okay, here's how we can navigate through it. Here's how what this can look like and the importance of those things. And again, why now, even though I don't always like it, I often don't like it, is being visible, right? Being loud, being out there, because I know, like I said, like I remember I was at a panel the other day and it was just like, I forget what I said, but it was, one of my, just how I talk. And like they were just like so enamored by it because it's like, oh, no one talks like that in this type of environment, in these types of settings, but it's, and so hearing me up on stage validates their experience, validates who they are. And so I continue to try and be that, and having Victor on CBC, hearing his voice on the radio, that is powerful. Having him announcing a game and using his vernacular, his slang to, convey what is happening. Like you feel a part of it. Like that feels, it feels like home. Like to see other people in the workplace who speak like you, look like you, act like you, talk like you, it feels so comfortable. And so, being that first one helps open the door for so many people. It inspires so many people, it uplifts so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having someone else, it's like I always have hold the notion of if you can't see it, you can't be it. And if you're not seeing yourself represented in those spaces, then you're met with this feeling of, well, I guess I can't do that. And I think it's really important for us to be able to see ourselves represented in all kinds of spaces, and also to be represented in a way that doesn't stifle who we are or our personalities or the things that we've collected from our own lived experience. I think the ability to be able to show up authentically is very important. um, this transition will not be as smooth because we are moving into more serious conversations about, well, I will say that moving with authenticity is very important, but sometimes it is really hard to move authentically when you feel like your brain health and your mental health are not at a place where you feel like you can show up as yourself. I know for me, when my mental health is not at its best, I am not showing up as the person who I know that I am. And that is a really challenging thing to go through, especially as a racialized person, where you already feel like you need to stifle parts of yourself just being a racialized person. But then you also have this added factor of your own brain not working with you. And that is an extremely challenging notion of being a person. So within our last culture chat that we had in November, we worked with Dr. Jeremy Grant, who is extremely intelligent. He has a bachelor's degree in biology, a master's degree in neuroscience, and a PhD in clinical psychology. So he has the biggest brain. And we were so happy to get to meet with him because he discussed why your brain health is so important and how to navigate cultivating good brain health as a racialized person. And so I'm wondering for you, Nathan, what advice have you given to others about when it comes to understanding their brain health, and especially in regard to stress levels, because dealing with stress is one of the hardest parts of being a racialized person and also being in the workplace. So, how have you navigated that and helped others to navigate it?
Yeah, some of the key things that we've heard a lot. Every month we have our check-ins, so people are sharing their stories with us a lot. Stress is often a common theme in a lot of these things, and so some of the key things that we've seen are one is learning how to read your tank, right? And so just like a gas gauge on a car where it's on E, a lot of us have become so disconnected from our tank that it's like we don't know that we're on E until we're on the side of the road and we can't move, or we're in our bed on our back so we can't get up. We don't realize. And so getting back in tune with our own tanks and being able to assess, like, okay, what depletes me and what fills me up, right? And so getting mindful with that again, and that takes time to create space for yourself so I can get back in tune with my tank and see how am I, where am I at right now? So I'm not just going. Some of us are socialized to think, you don't stop until the work is done. Life is hard, just keep on going, or I'm tough, I will work through it. And we work our way through the troubles, but we don't see the cost that it is having to us. So that's one. Second thing is creating a self-care routine. And I often like to break those down by what can I do daily? So whether it's things like I'm going to go for a walk after supper, I'm going to do 10 minutes of meditation or yoga or something like that. I'm going to practice. So it's like I have that self-care routine. I have a daily. What do I do weekly? What do I do monthly? What do I do quarterly, yearly? Setting goals for ourselves. So being very clear, what is it that I want? What do I want to achieve? Um, so that I have direction. I'm not just aimless, but there's a reason why I'm going through this current period of stress, and it balances, right? Like the amount of work or struggle that I'm going through matches what I'm trying to achieve. I'm setting boundaries. I'm going to rush through these, but we can talk later. I see we're at the hour. So we're setting boundaries And then lastly, we're being in community. So we're being very intentional around being around people, being in community, because that helps to build our own individual resilience, that helps build our sense of belonging, and that helps build our self-worth and our confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of those so much. We do have a question in the chat, and I think it's a really important one, so I would like to try and answer it as quickly as we can. At what point does the stress one accumulates due to the anti-Blackness and racism in the workplace become a safety concern? And can stress be viewed from the lens of being a workplace safety issue?
Wow. All right. Um, so I think safety, I mean that word I guess is the difficult one where we'd have to really define what we mean by that. But I think that it is always a concern. Um, and we see that prolonged exposure to these types of stress have profound impacts on us biologically, neurologically, mentally, spiritually, all of those things. And so we have to be very mindful that if I'm in this situation, what am I in it for? What is it costing me? Again, going back to that tank, how much is it costing me? And why am I here? So, what is my goal in being here and putting up with this stress, putting up with this pain? Is it for a short period of time? And so I'm getting very clear where it's like, I'm here in order to achieve that. I know it takes this much out of me every time I go to work, but I know these activities help fill me up. So I create a routine for myself to make sure that putting myself in that situation that I'm okay, right? I have all of the things in place to make sure that I can navigate through there. I have my goals to let me know why I am going through this. So I'm not just aimlessly putting up with stress and pain for no reason, but there is something to work towards. And then I have boundaries that even as I'm working towards it, there's still limitations of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable to me. That no matter what, even if I'm achieving my goals, once you cross those lines, I no longer put up with it. And so it's very important that as you find yourself in these situations, that you put these five things into practice. And that's really going to help you to navigate if I'm going to stay here, here's what I need to have in place in order to stay here. And then where's the limits where if those limits are crossed, I am going to remove myself from that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for answering that question. I'm really glad that you did because you're right. It's really hard for us to figure out where those boundaries lie for ourselves within spaces where we do have the potential to become unsafe. And I think that that was a really important thing for us to answer. Thank you all so much for being here today. That concludes the end of our culture chat for today. But I also want to iterate that we have many other services available to you. We also have our mental health for success program. We have another check-in happening later this month on December 18th at 8 a.m., which you can sign up for in our website. But we'll have registration links on our Instagram as well. So I hope that you are able to take the time to come and join us. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us through Instagram, through email, whatever works for you. If you have things that you want to know about more from the chats that we have, from the check ins that we want to be able to support you and help you in the best way we can because we are big advocates of community. And if we can provide it for you, we would like to do that. I'll pass it back to Nathan so he can
All
close
right.
it off for us.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that, I said it at the beginning, but the importance of the work that we're doing is really a holistic approach, right? And you can see by the topics that we covered, while they seem separate, they're all interconnected and they all impact how we show up in this world, how we show up in community. And so just grateful for all of you, grateful for all of the guest speakers that we've had in this year. Please be on the lookout for next year. We have some more fire coming for you next year. Some new things that we're going to be announcing, so keep an ear out for those things. It's going to be fantastic. And lastly, just want to give it up for Julia for doing such a great job for the seamless transitions. So yeah, let's put it together for Julia and for all of you. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And we hope that as we go into this new year, that you enter in refreshed, rejuvenated, full of hope and the audacity to know that your life um, can be better, right? That you have what it takes in order to navigate this world and to create a better life for yourself. So I hope you all have a wonderful end of the year, a break, that you take some time to relax, recuperate, be with family and community. And we'll catch you. If we don't catch you at the next check in, we'll catch you in January.